Hello everyone, welcome to Tailgate Tarot. I am Joshua with Fixed Earth Free. We're going to look at a card today. Last time I did this, we ended up kind of doing a small reading surrounding a central card. I'm probably going to just go ahead and mimic that again today to try to get a better understanding of the cards within my own self and to share that with you as well. If you're interested in a reading of any kind, contact me, let me know. You can contact me Fixed Earth Free on TikTok. You can also contact me fixedearthfree@gmail.com. Let's get into this a little bit. It's a wet day today. We've had some rain. We have a little bit of fog now, sort of overcast. So I'm looking for the element of water to be present in some way, because I believe that we are receiving some understanding surrounding water. Is that our card for the day? It sure did jump out there. That's our card for the day. The Chariot. Nothing watery about that guy. Okay, so we're gonna look at the Chariot. Looking at the Chariot here, one of the first things I'm seeing today is this square of materiality on his chest. The four elements are located there. So, okay, there's a little bit of water. Oh, and look at this. He's got the moons on his shoulders. Why do you have that? I've looked at this card so many times, and every time I see something different. I guess that's the nature of tarot, eh? We have this black and white Sphinx. There's a duality associated with that, especially when you consider this top and the fact that the top strikes a balance, and so long as it's moving and it has momentum, it can keep that balance. But the moment that it stops, it topples over and can no longer hold the charge between the dualistic points. But back to the moons and the square. What are all these hieroglyphs on his little skirt about? That's so interesting. These moons on his shoulder, that's going to be interestingly associated with emotion, intuition. And look, he has a happy and a disturbed face. I have never noticed those before either. How freaking cool. Last time I did this, we looked at the star, and he has the symbol of the star on his head, as well as the starry curtains around him. There's obviously a Martian connotation of will, force, and movement going on here. That's nothing new to us, but this emotional aspect, this square of materiality, which, I mean, the materiality is not terribly surprising either, but I think there is this understanding of materiality and spirituality, that this force, this archetype is operable in both worlds. It's not just one or the other. In fact, I think to keep that top spinning, you have to be able to be operable with your will, with your force in both worlds, and you have to understand that both worlds are not mutually exclusive or truly separate from one another, but rather they are different levels of expression of the same existence. So let's stop that little rabbit trail there, and let's pull the first card to go above here. We have the Five of Swords. I keep pulling this guy and seeing him. Look at that fiery hair. Look at the way he has used his will and used his force. He's conquered others and is taken from them. Look at the despair he's caused with these figures in the background. And there's some water. There's some sort of an idea. The swords, of course, being the suit of mentality, or the mind. But there's that idea of the waters behind as well. His waters are quite still. He's not terribly concerned with the emotions, but he's very happy to dominate the minds of others. King of Swords. There's more swords. Two of Swords. I swear if this last one's a sword. Okay. Two of Cups. All right, so more duality. Quite a bit of duality going on here, and quite a bit of mentality. I really like the Two of Swords. There's something about her that brings me so much joy, and peace. There's something about her that brings me peace, and maybe for me, joy and peace go hand in hand. I'm recently learning to contact my joy guide, and I'm finding that that's more and more true. But here we have the moon again, and we also have this idea that I think what I like so much about this card is there is a blind trust. There's duality where you're not trying to analyze and pick one side or the other, but you're just trusting, going with it. Here, in reverse, we're going to go ahead and say that the figure of the Chariot is discomforted by that blindness. You want to understand, and if you embody both worlds, you want to do it both eyes wide open. King of Swords, there is again this idea of rulership of the mind. And I think that that's very interesting when you consider will and the action of the will that the Chariot implies. That a firm, structured, composed action of the will requires mastership of the mind. That if your mind is not within your own control, you're all over the shop. Could be that that's actually what this indicates. Typically when I see this, I see it as almost like a jester-like malevolence where this person is besting other people in his life. But this actually could be the disparate parts of the mind that are scattered out and about, that are being brought to heal. And this one willful figure with fiery hair, right, is gathering and collecting all the disparate parts of the mind and bringing them together toward rulership. If we look back at this Two of Swords reversed again, we're going to see water present once more. There's a bit of water present back here in the King of Swords, but not enough to really crow about. But this water present in the Two of Swords and the moon in the sky, I think that's what brings me so much peace here, is she's shutting her eye to the analytical side of things, and she's trusting the intuition. And so maybe, I can't say the Chariot's not doing that. I can't say that this reversal is like an opposite idea of that. It's just the idea applied differently. And I really think that it's this both eyes open. He has both the intuition, the spirituality, as well as the analytical mindset as well. And he embodies both. And with the mastery of both, which I think is indicated in some ways by the scepter, he's able to move. I've always found it striking that this Chariot is like, it looks like he's sealed in a block of concrete. There's no wheels on his Chariot. So in what way is he charging forward? And I think that he's charging forward through the action of these things. We could even call this mind and spirit. Earlier I called it materiality and spirituality. I think both can be true, but I find it very interesting that his way of charging forward might not necessarily be physical in nature. I'm really, really intrigued by these faces. The happy and the upset face on his shoulder pauldrons. Right by the moon, there's that emotional nature. That's so cool. Let's get back, let's go down to the Two of Cups. I really find this one very interesting because if we bounce it off of the concept of the Five of Swords here, where it's this collection of the disparate parts of the self, I find this card to be the marriage of, you could call it the higher and the lower self, you could call it the marriage of two different aspects of the self, but there's this idea that two things coming together form this elevation. And this figure, I've studied him a bit as well. I'm so intrigued by this winged lion. It feels to me like the symbolic nature of what the Chariot also symbolizes. This sheer force of primal will, and it's achieved in its higher nature by the marriage of the self. The marriage of, you could call it the feminine, the masculine within the self. You could call it the marriage of the higher self, the lower self. You could call it taking the disparate parts of the self and collecting them into one to have that mastery, right? I really favor this emotional mastery aspect. And I think that if we were to take all of these cards and what they're showing us, there is this collection of the self. There is this both eyes open capacity of emotional mastery, mental mastery, and with all of that collected together, balance is achievable. And in this balance, not in the collapsing into one or the other, the grounding of that surge that exists between polarities, not collapsing that or grounding that to one or the other polarity, but rather sitting in between, that top spinning. And while there's momentum, there's charge, there's energy. You're existing between two things. And that can be a little uncomfortable, right? But it can also be a little uncomfortable. It can also be incredibly joyful. It's this bothness, and within that duality and that polarity, there's quite the capacity to charge forward into the world and manifest, to make things the way you want them to be. So how are we going to bring the Chariot into our lives? That's an interesting question. I think that the capacity to... Let me back up a little bit. Within my life personally, I don't really love the discomfort of vibrating between two polarized things. I would really like to collapse the superposition into one or the other. I don't like that liminal discomfort. I'm learning to like it because it's quite necessary. Learning to like it just through, I don't know, exposure therapy. But regardless, I really think that's what is being shown here, that when energy starts to bubble up within us, a lot of times it seeks somewhere to go, and in a lot of cases we can take that energy and we can wind up wasting it, throwing it away on distractions, throwing it away on whatever thing feels the most comfortable and the most pleasurable in the moment. But that's rarely the most useful, the most productive, the most the best thing to do with that energy. It's far more advisable, I would say, to take that energy, and rather than having to ground it into something immediately, what I really prefer, I really like this circulation breath of breathing up the spine, holding it until it shines, breathing down the front of the body, spiraling down into the lower dantian, into the cauldron, and holding it there, and just circulate that several times. It's far less pleasurable, it's far less comfortable to just let that sit and circulate. But the times that I've practiced this, and I practiced it religiously, I have felt as if I reached a point where I could punch a hole in the earth. It's been just phenomenal feelings associated with that. And so I think that teaches the lesson that it's not just that we shouldn't ground the energy, but that we should use it wisely. When we are given energy, when we're given a capacity to do something, a skill set, an unction to do something, it truly is a gift. I think we have too much tendency to take so much ownership of what we possess, and I know that sounds strange, that we feel as if it's just ours to do whatever we want with. But if you look at life itself, every second, every moment, the energy that's keeping us alive, if you look at that as a gift from God, from the universe, from spirit, then you can actually begin to look at your actions as stewardship of that energy. And if we are given energy, if we are given the capacity to master the spiritual, emotional side of ourselves, as well as the mental, physical, that that's a calling in a way, right? And I'm not even saying that you have to like go donate all of your money to charity and become a monk who never spills their energy, and like, I'm not even suggesting any of that. What I am saying though is that you can do something creative with the energy. You can do something productive with the energy. And while that's not something that's sinful to avoid doing, nor in some way wrong, if you do the most pleasurable thing, if you do the most comfortable thing, what I am saying is there's great value to be had to take this energy and charge forward into the world and do something valuable with it. I think I've talked that to death. Like I mentioned before, if you guys are interested in a reading at all, let me know. I do astrological natal chart readings. I also do tarot readings, and I'm happy just to talk to you, man. If you need anything in life, just let me know. I'll see what I can do for you. For now, this has been Tailgate Tarot. Thank you for your time. I hope you have a wonderful day.